Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Today we're doing a correction of errors in suspense account question. This comes from the year 2020. It's question 6. This is a 100 mark question. They do come up as 60 mark questions, but you don't have to do as much work. So as they always start off in a 100 marker, we're given a balance sheet and we're told that the trial balance of a company failed to agree at the 31st of 12, 2019. Now, an important thing to take here is that this guy is a garage owner. And what that essentially means is that he, a lot of the things we'll be looking at, if it's a purchase of a vehicle, can be to do with purchases rather than a fixed asset. Other things like maybe it's repairs that he gives could be seen as creating a debtor. So someone might owe me money for a repair that I do. So just you have to be careful when looking at the questions that what your company is doing makes sense when you're opening up certain accounts. So the difference was entered into a suspense account and the following balance sheet was prepared. So the first thing you do is we look at what is including the suspense account. And this will come into play when we're looking at the corrected balance sheet of Beglin, and it might also come into play when you're looking at the suspense accounts and some other bits and pieces. It's just we need to know that. So we're given everything else as normal. We have cost depreciation, net for fixed assets, we have current assets, we have current liabilities, and we have our finance by part. So that should all be okay here now. So we can just look at some of the questions and then go through the adjustments. Now, these are long enough, so the first thing we need to do is we need to create journal entries. So journalize the necessary corrections. So the first thing we do is use T accounts, and then we can extract the information from our T accounts into journal entries. The other thing, we have to create a suspense account. That would be quite straightforward. It's only worth 6 marks. C, we have to prepare a statement showing the corrected net profit. So that's not too difficult. What we have to do is we have to take the net profit given and then look at some of the figures in our T accounts to see if that will lead to an increase or a decrease in the profit. Then we do a corrected balance sheet, and then we have a theory question. So again, let's say if we don't know much theory and suspense account and we get everything else right, we still can get 92% in this question. So obviously we want to get the theory right, but it's not the be all and end all. And we surely should be able to get 2 or 3 marks at least. So the theory question is, give an example of an error of commission. Will this type of error be revealed by a trial balance? Explain your answer. So this is all in the book. And we do need to know and maybe have a small example of every one of the errors. So with that, we'll go on to the first adjustment. So if I just zoom in a small bit, we are told that equipment purchased on credit. So we have equipment, and if we look at our balance sheet, we can see that that is a fixed asset. We should know that anyway. Numbers look a bit distorted there. So we have equipment purchased on credit from Bab, so he's just a creditor. So it's purchased on credit for 6,600 had been entered on the incorrect side of Bab's account as 6,060 and as 6,000 in the purchases account. So we essentially we made loads of errors with this. So the first thing I'll do anyway is I'll get out Earl. So this is the first thing we should be doing in nearly every question at this stage. So we have our T account and we have Earl. So what that means is that everything on the debit side looks like this. And that's the credit side. So my expenses and my assets will increase on the debit side. My revenue and liabilities If they're on a credit side, it's a positive entry. So if we purchase something on credit from a creditor, what that should be doing is it should be increasing my liabilities, increasing a creditor's liability. However, because it was put on the incorrect side of Bab's account, that means that what we actually did is we put it as a debit entry, so as if it was reducing Bab's account. But if we're buying something, obviously it's increasing the account. So that's one of the mistakes. So that's just mistake one. Mistake two is that we put in the wrong figures. So 6,060 and a 6,000. Now, as well as that, this is equipment, and we said that equipment is a fixed asset. So even though we are a garage, we haven't bought vehicles, because you'd imagine vehicles would be purchases because we're selling them on. But equipment could be things like a car jack, or maybe you buy a workbench or something like that you're not buying with the intent to sell on. So that's the second error. And the third error is it's in the wrong account. It's in the purchases account. So essentially, our accountant really messed this one up. So there's three different errors here. So the first thing is we need to correct, or we'll just put out what's there first. So we have, we'll have a suspense account because we had double entry errors. So if there was 6,060 were put on both accounts and the double entry was done correctly, then there'd be no suspense, but we can tell that there's 60 in the difference here. So that would have had to be put into a suspense account. Okay, so you have creditors, purchases, and suspense. So going back to the question, we have a debit entry in the creditors account 6060. So what is there currently? Now, the other thing, it says it was put in the purchase account. So if we treated that as if it was a purchase, what we would have done is we would have also put it in the debit side of the purchases, because that's what it is. You're buying something, so it goes in as purchases as a positive. So it'd be a debit side. So, because it didn't say that we double entered it into the purchase, it says we put it in as purchases. So what we would have to do is we would then, to balance this, to make everything equal, what we would have done as a accountant was open a suspense account and put both of those entries into here. So there's going to be 12,060, or you could put both entries in together. So basically what we have to do is we have to say, oh my god, we messed this up so badly, we just are going to get rid of everything that's in there. So the creditors, I'm just going to take out what was in there. Purchases, I'm just going to take out what was in purchases. Suspense, I'm going to take out what was in suspense. And that double entry, so that's all okay. If we take out 6060, take out 6,000, that double entry into suspense will equal there. So now we have nothing in any of the accounts. Now I go back to the question. We bought equipment, so we will need to use an equipment account. So what should have actually happened, again, continuing to use red, the amount is 6,600. So there should be 6,600 increasing my creditors. So there should be 6,600. That will double entry into equipment bought as 6,600. And that's it. So the only entry we should have done is 6,600 in creditors, 6,600 in equipment, that double entry, boom. However, because we made three different errors, we have wrong figures, wrong sides, and we use purchases instead of equipment, we had to just net everything, get it to 0, and redo the double entry. So that means there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 different entries that we have to make into our journals. So we'll do that later on. And we can say we could just say something like, this is being a correction of equipment bought on credit, however, entered on the incorrect side of the incorrect account. So it's put on the incorrect side, on the incorrect account. So it's put here, 6,000 in the incorrect account, incorrect side of creditors, and that's kind of it. So just a correction of that. So we'll deal with that in a bit. So this is part I. Now, looking at part 2. So I'll just clear what we have here. So for question 2, a creditor who was owed 5,500 by Beglin accepted equipment, so we're dealing with equipment again, the book value of which was 5,200 in full settlement of the debt. So we owe 5,500, they accept 5,200, so that means that there must be discount there. So we know there'll be a discount. So whenever we pay someone less than we owe them, or we accept something that's less to the value than they owe us, there's discount. The equipment had cost 6,800. So they're telling us the equipment had cost 6,800. It's now worth 5,200. That means that there's depreciation, which we can already account for. So you have equipment, that's the cost, that's the depreciation to date. So we would have to look at that. So this is nice. No entry had been made in the books in respect to this transaction. That means that this was an error of omission, which is nice and simple. We just do the double entries without having to do anything else. So here we have our 4 different accounts. We have creditors, equipment, depreciation of equipment, and discount. So going back to our Earl, if a creditor is accepting equipment, that means that their creditors will go down. So that's a debit entry. So I'll just use red. So debit entry, how much was it? 5,500. Now, we are reducing our equipment. We're decreasing our asset. So that's a credit entry. So our equipment is only going down 5,200. The other 300 then has to be a discount. So we can show this in different ways. We could put down 5,200 and the double entry would be here and here, and then put in, so you could put 5,200 and put in 300. We could do it that way. We could just accumulate it in the creditors, 5,500, and then go to discount over there. Now, the accumulation of depreciation, so the depreciation is 1,600, so we're saying 6,800 is how much it cost when we bought it. It's now only worth 5,200, so there's 1,600 is accumulated depreciation. So with that we have, oh sorry, I did that wrong, 1,600 here and 1,600 here. So that's the double entry there. So we have, out of this 5,500, 5,200 is going to the equipment, 300 is going to discount. We have to reduce our equipment by the total amount of which it cost, which was 6,800. So that would mean that 1,600 would create the full amount in our equipment, and then the other 1,600 would go to depreciation of equipment. Now again, what we could say is we could just make this the full amount. We could just put in here 6,800, but that might be a slightly bit confusing because you don't know where that the double entry is including that. So I'm just going to leave it as we had it, and that's that done. And this is a simple being omission of a creditor accepting equipment for a debt owed, something like that. Now, so part 3. So a private debt of 1,200, so private debt is important, of 1,500 owed to Beglin. So these are very important to get these two-letter words right. So if it's owed to Beglin, that means that it's almost like a personal debtor. Okay, if you want to think of it like that. And personal being the key term because it's going to either be capital or drawings. We know that that's whenever we talk about a person in suspense account, private, it's either going to be drawings if we're taking money away or capital if we're adding money into the company. So in this case, I will find out. So it's a personal debtor. Had been offset in full settlement against the business debt of 1,600 owed by Beglin. So personal debtor here, and we've a company creditor here by. No entry had been made in the books in respect of this transaction. Nice and simple. So what we're essentially saying is this is almost as if it's like a contra entry to some degree if we were looking at control accounts, because we have a debtor and a creditor is the same person. However, we're segregating them into private and company, or private and company. So essentially what's happening is I am introducing capital into the company of 1,500. I'm going to be reducing creditors by 1,660, and then there's obviously we are receiving a discount of €160 then as well. So if we go to our T accounts, so we are reducing creditors. So that's a debit entry of 1,660. We are introducing capital. So if they owed me 1,500 privately, what we're saying is instead of us dealing it privately, I'm technically introducing a positive 1,500 into the company. So we're giving, basically, we are giving a debtor to the company. So it's kind of indirectly capital, if you want to look at it like that, of 1,500. So that would be 1,500 is capital, and then the discount is 160. So it's a positive discount. If my creditor is giving me a discount, that is a revenue. So that would be a credit entry. And that is that bit. So not too tough. That's that one done. So going on to part 4. So payments from a business bank account. So it's our bank account for repairs. So that's an expense. To business premise of 1,000 and insurance of private dwelling. So private of 750 were entered correctly in the bank account, but respectively credited to the creditor's account and credited to the insurance account. So we definitely have bank is an account we need, creditor is an account we need because we credited to the creditors. We'll need the insurance account, but we'll also need if the company is paying for private dwellings, that's drawings, because we're taking money out of the company for private use. So we definitely have bank. We definitely have creditors. We definitely have insurance. We should have drawings. We essentially incorrectly put, it's probably if we look at the question, So because of this respectively, it means that the 1,000 has gone into the creditor's account and the 750 has gone into insurance. So what we had for repairs should be 1,000, but we don't have a repairs account. So this here should be repairs. And I just feel because so much has gone wrong, there'll probably be a suspense, but instead of guessing, we should have a look. So I might just set it up first before we do a suspense, and then we'll be able to see if we have a suspense account. So it was entered correctly in the bank account. So they're both payments. So if money is leaving our account, it's a negative asset. So that means it's a credit entry. So we have a credit entry of 1,000 and 750. Credit 1,000, I'll just do them separately, 750. So they're saying that respectively, the 1,000 euro has been credited to the creditor's account. So there's definitely going to be a suspense because we haven't correctly done a double entry. So there'll be a suspense account. And credited to the insurance account. So it's also credited to insurance. Now we know, number one, if we're paying for something that's coming out of our bank account, it should double entry into our repairs account. 750. So we have way too much on one side. So we need to get our suspense account out and basically put everything. We'll need to counteract it. So everything is on the credit side. So 1,750, 1,750, so that's 3,500 would double entry over here. That makes sense. So this has double entered into here. This is double entered into here. This is double entered into here. So they've all double entered into the debit side of suspense. Now, so the bank figures are correct, so we don't have to change the bank figures. I don't want anything in the creditor's amount. So 1,000 is coming out of creditors, going to suspense. $750 coming out of insurance, going into suspense. Now we do what should have happened. So the 750 should have double entered into drawings because we weren't paying for company insurance, we were paying for private insurance. So that double entry will then have to go into the suspense. Again, that 1,000 euro should have gone to repairs. So repairs will be 1,000 and the double entry will have to be into suspense as well. So that is definitely a tricky one. But we know that the bank is correct because they said that they gave us that it says in the question, the 1,000 and 750 were entered correctly in the bank account. So the bank account, we don't need to change anything. And the reason we have a suspense account is because we didn't double entry it properly. So if the accountant did put 1,000 in here and 750 in there, all we would have had to done is double entry it into drawings and into repairs, and there'd be no suspense. But because they're both put on the wrong side, we basically just have to get rid of creditors, get rid of insurance, pop it in suspense. So that's these here. And then in order to actually increase our drawings and increase our repairs, they're both on the same side. So where are you going to put it? Well, the only place you can really put it is into suspense, and that's where you get your 3,500. So that is adjustment 4. That was definitely the longest. So the last one. Beglin sent a check for 920 in full settlement of a business debt of 990. So again, what's that? That is dealing with a discount, because there's 70 euro in the difference. So that would be a discount received because we sent a check. Yeah, we are Beglin, so we sent a check of $920 to pay for a debt of $990. However, no entry had been made in the book for the dishonoring of this check and the subsequent payment of the amount in full by Beglin from a personal bank account. Okay, so there's a lot going on here. The first thing we'd have to do is, this was recorded correctly in the book, so we'll just go straight to the books, or sorry, we'll go straight to the T accounts and put in the correct amounts. So if I sent money to a creditors, our creditors are decreasing, so it's a debit on the creditors, and money is coming out of my bank account because it's a check. So bank decreases by 920. So again, a negative asset, we're decreasing our asset, so it's a credit entry of 920. The double entry is into your creditors, so our creditors decrease by 920. To make up the 990, we have to increase the debit side by 70, and that 70 goes into discount. So that's what we have in our records, but we're wrong, because we are told that no entry had been made in the books for the dishonoring of this check. So the check was dishonored, which basically means that it bounced. We didn't have enough in our bank account, so we basically have to get rid of everything. So we essentially, what really happened is the 920 didn't go through. Or sorry, let's just go back for a few minutes and just think about, let's say that we had an agreement with our creditors. I would take equipment off you for $990 or purchases for $990, and the creditor said to me, if you pay within a month, I'll give you €70 off the order. So let's say I sent this check 25 days after I took the goods. So if I didn't realize this check bounced until, let's say, the next month, so another 10 or 12 days time, so let's say it's 35 days have gone past, I technically haven't paid for it, so now the discount is null and void, so you also have to get rid of the discount. So let's say it was the end of the month and the creditor went back to me and said, this check has been dishonored, not my problem, it's your problem. Because you haven't paid me within the month, we're no longer giving you that discount. So you have to take away the discount as well. Now, so that's done with that. That's the dishonoring of this check is dealt with. And the subsequent payment of the amount in full by Beglin from a personal bank account. So there's a personal bank account. So if I'm paying it personally, that means we're injecting money into the company or giving money to the company. So that's going to be capital. Whether if we were taking money out of the company, it would be drawing. So this is capital. It's the whole amount. So let's say we're now reducing creditors by 990, and capital, we're injecting 990 into the company because it says it was in full. So that's all the adjustments done. So now what you have to do is create journal entries. So to create journal entries, I'm just going to put up, because it would take too long to do them now, and all I'm doing is basically copying what would come from the solutions, because the T accounts aren't in the solutions. I'm just going to use the solutions for the journal entries so you can see where everything came from. So I'll just get that up now. Okay, so here are the 52 marks for the journal entries done on the T accounts. So really in an exam, we'd have to rush through this. The T accounts wouldn't take you as long as it's taken me to do it, because we're trying to explain it as we go through it. However, so you'd get the T accounts done a lot quicker than we did, and the journal entries are basically just taking anywhere you see red, putting it in. So you have part I, debit and credit, and you could keep the same. So generally they would be going down kind of in a silo, so just down the page. But because it wouldn't fit, it just made it easier to do it side by side. So we have creditors 6060, so we see 6060 here for creditors. Purchases 6000, So purchases red 6,000, suspense 12,060, 12,060 in red. Then 600 in the debit side, 600 creditors. 600 creditors, credit side, 6,600 equipment on the debit side. Perfect. And then we just give it some bit of a being something. So this is being correction of equipment, purchase on credit being treated essentially as purchases, and the incorrect side of creditors. Even something like that, just break it down to where they'll understand it. So you're basically missing out on 5 marks if you don't write something small. And a lot of the time, like, it doesn't have to be word for word what they give, but as long as you give a good description of what's happening, then the correctors will be happy. So you can kind of look through everything then later on when you get this solution. You can see anywhere we had red is going to be red over here. So part 2, equipment 6,800. So they accumulated these two. Creditors 5,500, depreciation and discount 300. So we had all that. And you can see the marks as well. So you can see that like some of the easier stuff are actually given 3 marks. So the discount is given 3 marks because they don't say in the question, this is discount. You have to come up with the solution, or you have to come up with the account, because you say, well, if I owed them 10,000 and I only paid them 9,500, well, they're obviously accepting or giving me a discount of 500. Now the discount isn't as obvious then going forward, or sorry, you don't get 3 marks for discount for the rest of the questions. So you get 2 in here. You are given 3 marks for capital because we have to think whenever they introduce private into the question, it's either drawings or capital. And if we're so I'll just write down giving money to the business from personal funds, that is capital. So I know we generally look at capital as if we're buying shares or buying if we're buying shares from a company that's privately listed. However, if we're looking at sole traders, let's say, me privately just giving money back to the company is seen as capital. So if we're using company money for private use, for personal use, that is drawings. So essentially when you're looking at insurance, so we paid private insurance through the company. That means we're taking funds out of the company to use for personal use. So that was drawings. So if you look at question 4, that's where the insurance. So there's actually no money going into insurance, let's say, if we do our final accounts, but we will see the drawings figure in the balance sheet. And that's that. So you can see them there. You can kind of switch over through what we had for T accounts. Look, see what they have for journal entries. See the kind of get used to the way in which they phrase the description. So being XYZ, being correction, being omission, being, yeah, so generally it says omission and correction here. That will help you a lot. Now we have to do a suspense account. So if we go to the suspense account, so all it is a nice T account. Now you wouldn't have to take up a full page. I just have given it a full page, so I might as well use it. So we just call it suspense account. Now there's 2 ways to do it. We can use our journal entries or we can use our T accounts. I'll just use the T accounts. Anywhere we see red, so we have a debit of 12,060. That would be going into the suspense account. We have all of these going into the suspense account, so 3,500. So we'll put that in now. So we have, and what we essentially want to do, we want to get X or X, and it was the like original balance. Okay, so I'll just put in this now. So we don't know if the original balance is a debit amount or a credit amount, but as we go through, we can see. So essentially what we've done is by doing the adjustments, we now have nothing in the suspense account. Okay, so we have to show it. So we had creditors purchase issue, creditors and purchase, which came from part I. It was 12060. And you can see it here as well, 12060. So it depends on which one you want to do. Perfect. We also had, where was it? Part 4 on the credit entry. It was, sorry. Well, we had an issue with bank and creditors and insurance or drawings of 3,500. So if this was a normal figure on your balance sheet, what you would do is you would get the bigger number, which is 12,060, and the smaller side, which is the credit side, would get the amount. So 560 would bring that up to 4, so 8,560, and you would do closing, or you would call it balance brought down, and then you would go down here, do balance called down 8560. So let's say if we were doing the equipment, motor vehicles, any of those things, patents, anything that's a fixed asset, that's the way you would deal with it. However, when we're dealing with the suspense account, and we saw that the suspense account was included in the debtors, so we essentially have, what we have in our debtors is that 8,560 on the credit side of debtors. Okay, so we can go up here and we can say, so the original balance wasn't a debit entry, the original balance was a credit entry, and it was 8,560. So we want to we don't want our suspense in our debtors anymore. We want to get rid of it because we want to know what our actual credit, what our actual debtors owe us. So we now have to take that out of debtors. So we can just put that down here. We can say we now want to fix debtors. Our debtors is 66300. So currently 66300. So currently there's a credit. So currently we included 8,560 in here on the credit side. So that would have reduced our debtors, because we'll just take back out Earl. So A is a negative. So because debtors is an asset, the 8,560 was included on the credit side. To get rid of it, we now have to make a debit entry, which is 8,560. So we have to remove suspense. So our debtors figure is actually higher at, what's that? 74,860. Does that make sense? So like we're saying, the suspense account. So on our trial balance, we had an extra 8,560 missing from the credit. So you have to introduce 8,560 to the credit side. Instead of having a single entry called suspense, we incorporated it into the debtors. So it would have been there as initially we had 7,860. We removed, so we made a credit entry of 8,560. So that would have led us to 66,300. So now to get rid of that, we have to make a debit entry, which will increase debtors to 74,860. So tricky, but once you kind of get the hang of that, it's actually not that difficult. So now what do we need to do? We need to prepare a corrected net profit. So we have our statement of corrected net profit. We know that an increase will be a debit, an increase in expense. So something that decreases our net profit is going to be on the debit side. Something that increases our net profit will be on the credit side. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get the net profit figure from the question. So that's from the balance sheet. 42,700. So 42,700. We now have to look at what do we add that will increase net profit, what will we less that will decrease net profit. So going back to our T account, purchases. So purchases of 6,000 is on the credit side. So I did my little Earl up there. It's on the credit side, which means it's actually gonna increase my net profit. So normally purchases would decrease our net profit, but because we made a correction to purchases, which because what happened in that adjustment? What happened in that adjustment is we incorrectly put purchase of equipment as purchase of purchases to resale. So that means that we added 6,000 to a purchase, so now we have to actually take it away because it shouldn't have been in there. So what else is there? This discount, so we know that that is a P&L figure. It was on the credit side, so we received a discount, so that's 300. And we have another discount of 160. Again, that has to be positive because it's on the debit side, sorry, on the credit side. So another discount. So that's part 3. What here will reflect our net profit? Well, we have insurance is on the, so insurance is a P&L figure, repairs is a P&L figure, and again we have another discount. So insurance is on the debit side. We know that if we look at Earl, a debit is a negative. It will reduce or is an expense, so it will reduce our P&L. We know repairs is on the debit, decrease again. Discount is on the credit, that will decrease again. So 750, 1,070. We have insurance, repairs, and discount. So we have 750, 1,070. So this will give me 6,460 as a positive, and 1,820 as a negative. So I'll get 49,160. Here we get 47,340. And this is our corrected net profit. So our corrected net profit is 47,340. Now, so that is 14 marks there for getting that right. And we'll also need to use that for our balance sheet extract as well. So that's the next question, is balance sheet extract. So again, I think I'm just going to put up the solution to this because it would just take way too long to write it out. So I will add that now. Okay, so nothing changed to premise. What happened to vehicles? Well, in vehicles, we had actually nothing changed in vehicles as well. Purchases. So if we go back to our, now again, you can look at your journal entries or you can look at your T accounts. I'm going to look at my T accounts. Purchases, or sorry, equipment. Equipment decreased by 5,200 and 1,600. We also, where's the other equipment? Is there more equipment? Oh yeah, so 6,800. And then we also add 6,600 that will be added to our equipment. And then we have depreciation of equipment. So equipment plus 6,600 from adjustment I, minus 6,800 from adjustment II, accumulate depreciation less 1,600. So you could have them all in the same line if you wanted to. They just added it in there. Current assets, so here that's very important, that comes from our suspense. So as we said, we added, it was a plus figure because the suspense was net credit. So let's say if you wanted to, so what we had to do is it was net credit, so we have to put it over to the debit side in order to cancel it out. So the debit side, 8,560. Cash didn't change. So you can see that even for figures that didn't change, you actually get marks. So vehicles, you got 1 mark. Stock, you got 1 mark. Cash, you got 1 mark. VAT, you got 1 mark. Net profit does change, but they give you 1 mark for getting it right anyway. Drawings changes as well. So, debtors change. Bank, so they're all 1,750, 920, and 1,750. Let's see where that comes from. So that minus 1,750 and plus 1,750, I just didn't include either of them, which is grand because they cancel each other out, but that comes from adjustment IV. The 920 comes from adjustment V. Creditors, so there's loads of stuff going on with creditors, and we got 4 marks. Pretty sure nearly every question had, so that's from question 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So every adjustment affected creditors, so I all the way to 5. Creditors, capital, I think it was 4 and 5. Capital was 3 and 5. So 3 and 5, and drawings was 4. Drawings was 4. And that is your corrected balance sheet. So you might want to, I can change what I have here and just include also the solution to the state of corrected balance sheet. It doesn't give you loads, but the writing is probably slightly nicer. So That is that their purchase, discount, insurance, repairs, discount, correct net profit. So it's the exact same thing. This is probably the way in which you'd write it, but this is the way it's typed out. So when looking at the theory question, I'll just pop it up. It says, give an example of an error of commission. Will this type of error be revealed by a trial balance? So these are the things you need to be able to do. It even says it in the book. Make sure to be able to list, explain, and provide an example of for errors revealed and not revealed by the trial balance. So give an example of an error of commission. So error of commission, a transaction that has been entered on the correct side in the correct class of account but in the wrong account. So this is generally saying something like debtors or creditors, where you entered €200 in debtors correctly, but instead of sending it to James, you send it to Jamie's account, that kind of thing. So you can see that the cost of goods sold to credit to Gavin Corrigan was entered on the debit side of Gavin Corcoran's account. So this will not be revealed by the trial balance, which means that it will not cause a suspense. The reason for that is, let's say you have, it's still being treated as a debtor. So your debtor's figure is still increasing on the debit side. However, your sales will also increase by the same amount on the credit side. So the double entry corrects, the bookkeeping is correct. So that's why it would not be revealed by the trial balance. And this is what they have. So error of commission, this is where the correct amount is posted to the correct side of the incorrect account. For example, sales of 5,000 debited to Farrell's account instead of M. O'Flaherty's account instead of D. O'Flaherty's account. So it's just similar names but not right. This will not be reversed by the trial balance. This will not be revealed by the trial balance as the correct amount has been entered on the debit side, even though on the wrong account. The debit side and the credit side of the trial balance will agree, so it will not be obvious that an error has been made. So what they're actually saying is, in this amount, if you had journal entries, you would have, let's say, sales, and you would have M. O'Flaherty. M. O'Flaherty. So what we're saying is sales will go up 5,000. As the P&L figure, it goes up, so it's credit side. And Flaherty's account will be 5,000 as well on the debit side. So because they balance, double entry is correct, it won't be revealed by the trial balance. So that is the end of that very long question. I actually like the suspense accounts. I think they're quite good. But like everything in accounting, you just need to do loads and loads of practice, and that will be evident then when you start getting things right and things start fitting properly. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.